Hi, welcome. We're going to talk today with Impulse Logic about their retail inventory optimization solution that is implemented on OCI.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Brad. This should be interesting.
Let's start out by just asking you, what workloads have you moved to OCI?
Well, the original product, which is actually called Store Logic IQ, Slick. What Slick is really all about is store inventory management, is around food, grocery, and fast-moving consumer goods. That was a monolithic application of around about 3.5 million lines of Java code, mainly with some Python in AI. But the decision was made to basically abandon the monolithic architecture and move completely to microservices and move effectively the entirety of Slick.
What made you think we need to move to a microservices architecture? Why not stay monolithic?
Microservices architecture is very simplistically a much more efficient way of managing development and essentially being able to create microservices that might represent some particular function, say some element of machine learning, that can in fact be called by other microservices. And so it's a much better environment to work in. The reason why we chose OCI, though, is more an evolution of what took place in the design of Slick. We needed to know that there was a server farm that was in each geography relative to the regulatory requirements of that geography. And at the time, not only was Oracle evidencing that they were doing this, but they had a plan to pretty much cover everywhere. The next thing on the list was, of course, security. It's two levels of security. The security of uninterrupted availability.
Right.
And that very much comes down to nature of the server farms, the nature of the scalability, but importantly, the database, the autonomous database. This is absolutely magic, and particularly for retail, because you cannot have data go. You can't lose data under any circumstances. The second part of security was the ability to protect content data. No retailer wants to ever risk the fact that another retailer might know what their cost price was. So there's that level where we can say, okay, we put an added level of security on the field, so that, for example, we could actually be executing off a field, but we know the schema, we know the format of the field, but we may not know the actual content.
I'd like to just talk through the architecture itself. My understanding is you've got basically an integration tool that pushes data from maybe through an appliance in a store or whatever, pushes it up into the cloud. Can you take me through that a little bit?
Yeah. So from an integration viewpoint, what we have is a component part of our product is called MIQ. We're not great on marketing, so don't even ask what it means. But it's essentially an extract, transform, load capability, an ETL tool. It is very specific to retail, though. It was originally developed to be able to handle shelf tags, printed shelf tags. We had one tag that had 14 data feeds to create one tag that was only going to run for a 14-day promotion. So this was not funny. So fundamentally what we looked at and said, okay, we need to have a mechanism that enables us to federate data from whatever the application silo is. So this particular product, MIQ, goes inside the firewall, is controlled by the retailer, and fundamentally it's got the ability to go and connect to all of the data sources. It could be a spreadsheet, it could be Sybase, for example, it could be an Oracle database, it doesn't matter. It goes through the process of MIQ. When it comes out the other side, and it's just reading, this is all. So, for example, we might be reading a 150 data table out of a particular source. And out of that 150 data table, we might just need 5 data elements. So only those 5 are pulled, they're normalized for Slick, and only the 5 fire up to the cloud. So there's no load, we're not passing huge volumes of data. This is all real time. It's now normalized for Slick execution.
So it's not like a data lake. You're very selective in what you're pulling.
We use intelligence to take exactly what Slick needs and no more.
Your mid-tier, because it's running on Kubernetes, can scale up as needed.
Exactly.
But what are the triggers? How do you know whether it needs to scale up and whether it needs to scale back down? Is that controlled by the store or by your operations
No,
team?
it's controlled. We are triggering it based on the node usage that's occurring. So basically, if the microservice, the application nodes that are executing in the microservices, as they're being fired, that's when we will scale. Oracle seems to do that very well, even though I don't get down into that weeds as much. But the whole thing is very configurable and very easily configurable.
What's in the future for you with OCI?
Well, I think the first thing that we want to drive is to go full multi-tenancy, where we're running a single database across all of the instances for the different retailers. And I think that is definitely the pathway. I think it's to the benefit of the retailers in terms of platform costs. And I think it adds efficiency to the performance. There are things that we're already introducing into the product related to security. We're playing around with data vault, data safe. That's already in there. We would like to get to a point where we could allow retailers to directly onboard themselves. So we currently tend to focus on what I call larger retailers, but there's a load of smaller chains of less than 100 stores that we believe that there's mechanisms with the APIs out of OCI that might enable us to come up with a construct that we could do basically self-onboarding.
Lovely. Well, thank you. I appreciate your time today. Loved learning about Impulse Logic, and we wish you all the best.
Brad, it's really been a pleasure, and thanks for all the questions. Kept me probed. Thanks again.
Hey, did you like what you learned? Make sure to check out this video or this link, and of course, subscribe now.